here's one lesson I learned, or another lesson I learned along the way, is that I would read books about how to be a better person, how to be smarter, how to be more effective in whatever. You know, there's 7 habits, there's 6 steps, there's 5 ways. There's lots of people that want to tell me how to lead. And I would read these things and I think, okay, I'll try that. And that's what led to my failures in trying to be a good leader, was I was reading other people telling me how it worked for them. And what I would say is, in my opinion, their arrogance, they thought what would work for them would work for everybody else. And I started realizing that, you know, actually, it's not that those books were bad, or sometimes they're good or speakers. It's that they were a good resource, not the source for me. And that the value came not in like, oh, if I just follow these 7 habits, that I'll be a good leader. No, it didn't work for me. But I also realized it didn't work to just ignore these lessons that could be learned along the way. That I needed to evaluate for myself what seemed to make sense for me. And that's one of the things I love about college. A lot of college is about, you may be memorizing some information and learning some skills, but ultimately it's about the learning how to evaluate, how to look at it and say, well, this makes sense, and I understand it makes sense because of these things. But you know, I hear this sort of thing, and maybe it makes sense in some situations, but not for me. So part of evaluation is context. Who am I, and how does that work for me? The other thing, and if there's anything that I would encourage you to think about from what I say tonight, it's this. We all look for great answers. What I learned is it's not about the answers we find, it's about the quality of the questions we ask. Because you can get answers to the questions you're asking, but are you asking the right questions? Several times a year, people will bring like a survey to me, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to learn. I want to learn what students think about what activities we should offer on campus." I'm like, okay, really broad subject, but let's see what you have in the survey. And we'll look at questions, and sometimes the survey will be asking things. I'm like, well, if you find out the answer to this, are you going to be able to do anything with it? Well, probably not. And it's like, well, if you ask this question, is this really getting at? How are they going to answer it? Is this asking the right question to get at what you're looking at? So the focus really, more so than on finding the right answers for me, is I've always, for the last several years, I've focused on, am I asking the right questions? And what are the right questions? So then the question to that is, anybody want to take a stab at this? How do you find the right questions? Where do you go to find the right questions? Come on, don't be shy, raise your hands. Where do you go to find the right questions? To the student. To the student, okay. Where do you go to find the right questions then? To things you're wondering about. Like, I'm looking to learn certain things, and I'm not sure if I'm asking the right questions. Where should I go in general, not just in my job, but in life? I'm looking to answer questions that I have about life. Do I know if I'm asking the right questions? Is there a place I can go? Do I go to Google? The thing is, I don't have an answer to that. I think what I've learned is, if I want to become a good question asker, I just have to kind of turn inside. I have to think, what questions am I wanting to ask? What is it I want to know? And I need to reflect. I need to evaluate. And then I need to think about, oh, what's important? What is it I'm really searching for? We always look for answers, and as leaders, you're always here, well, we need to find the answer. We need to find out what people want. Like, what we really need to do is find out what are the questions we really need to ask. And this trips us up. I know it trips up colleagues of mine, and it can trip me up as well. We'll say, we need to find out what the students want, and so we may come and we ask you. But here's the thing. I've found, if I want to find out what you all want, it's important for me to look at it in perspective of the past students that were here, you currently, and future students. Because what you may want now, you may tell me in 5 years, yeah, I was kind of foolish with that. I didn't know for sure, and so I was guessing at it. We have a saying in the business, students don't know what they don't know. So I may just come and ask you questions, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get the answers I need for how to really work with you well. Some of it is, I want to ask alumni. Because they always say, oh, and I've had that a lot, oh, I didn't like this when I was a student, but now I understand. We just ask you what you want. Chances are you want that history class. Right? It's like, why am I taking this class? You know, we have arts and sciences. We have classes in arts and sciences. How many think, you've sat in a class and you thought, I see no connection to what I want to do in my life with what's going on in this class? How many people have experienced that? Here's the thing. If you've been in a class and you've thought, I just don't see a connection here, what I would challenge you is you're not asking yourself the right question. Because somebody looked at past experience with students, they looked at future potential with students, and they said, it makes sense that we offer this history class, that we require what's in this class. Somebody just didn't think, oh, we need some filler, and so we're just going to throw in this class so it looks important, but I don't really know why we have it in the curriculum. It's just there, right? You just put a lot of filler, Professor Meredith, you just put a lot of filler in your class because you probably, usually when I talk to faculty, they feel like they've got this much stuff, and if you talk with them about it, they can tell you why all of that is important, why all of it can help you. But you've got about this much space. Talk to faculty all the time, that's what they're going to say. So when you're sitting in your class and you think, this is stupid, what I would say is, think about how to ask the questions of yourself or the professor. Why is this relevant? Becoming good question askers is really important to learning how to be good leaders, how to achieve that potential that exists in all of us here, even myself. And I'm going to say, both of us still have some potential in becoming better leaders. We're a little bit up there in years, but you know, that's the way it works. Let me offer another thought on leadership. Another key thing on leadership, what does it take to become a leader? To have followers. Is that not true? If no one's following you, then are you leading? So I learned a couple things about followership. One, it's hard for me to be a good leader if I don't learn what it means to be a good follower, and always relearn what it means to be a good follower. For one, it's just common sense. There's always going to be times when I'm going to need to follow somebody else. But the other thing is, it gives me perspective for when I'm in a leadership role. Increasingly in my life, I'm more in the role of steering the thing than I am in sitting in the passenger seat. And so, understanding what it means to be following helps me be a better leader. But the other thing is, if I need people to follow me, you know, right now, there's probably, I don't know, 50 people 50 full-time people that report up through to me here. I need to be a good listener to what their needs are. I have a saying, people often ask me now, say, what does it mean to be a good supervisor? And I say, well, it means we've got to hire the right people, and then we've got to focus on giving them the right resources. And I think that's an ongoing thing. That's not a one-time deal. Hire the right people, focus on giving them the right resources, and then I like to get out of the way and let them do their job. But a large part of focusing on getting them the right resources is if we've hired the right people who know how to do the job well, I really need to listen to them, what those resources are that they need. And so becoming a good listener is important for me to be able to do my job as their leader. Now, the other thing about this, and we were just talking a little bit, Professor Meredith and I, a little bit about the government, what's going on there. And here's the thing. I've learned I can be right, or I can do the right thing. But oftentimes, that's not the same thing. And a lot of times, in a leadership role, I find, in my experience in watching others, we tend to think we are so smart. And wow, you know, I've earned this leadership role. Clearly, I know more than all of you. And what I've come to realize is, if I'm acting because I think I'm right, I'm probably not being a good leader. I actually find the best thing to do is look at what's the right thing to do. And a lot of times that's accepting that I may be wrong. A lot of times it's perhaps speaking out and saying, well, this would be how I feel we should go forward. Most of the time, I find, let that staff, the right people that we've hired, let them speak about what they think would be the right way to go. And I find that I'm a lot smarter if I'm not always right. And I actually, I have a conversation with students or with people who work with me and say, you can be right, or you can do the right thing. But in this instance, those are probably two different things. So choose one, but you probably can't choose both. So I've learned that listening to others and realizing that they may be smarter than me. Chances are good, they're smarter than me. Actually, I've always felt like probably the smartest person in the room. But I've always worked on trying to be the most disciplined person in the room. Trying to focus on what's important and sticking to that. Making goals for myself and sticking to them. And doing the little things that others don't notice. And being disciplined about it. And that's what served me well as a leader. Not being the smartest one in the room. So, that's what I want to offer tonight about leadership. I think, for me, it's a lifelong lesson and learning to see what I can learn about leadership and be a better leader. And I'm still learning what it means to be a better leader. I don't read those self-help books anymore. Haven't for years. I don't read books where people tell me about how to be a good leader. But I do find it really interesting to read biographies and autobiographies. Stories about people that I may admire or that I think have accomplished, like Steve Jobs' biography. Really interesting. That one's a popular one. Just finishing an autobiography by Sheila Bear. How many people know who she is? She was the chair of the FDIC, Federal Depository Insurance Corp. You heard that every time you go in a bank, you'll see FDIC insured. It assures that your money's safe when it's in a banking institution. You think, yeah, you've never heard of her. She was the head of FDIC from 2006 to 2011, so we had this little thing called the Great Recession. And that organization played an important role in helping us climb out of it safely. So reading her story, really fascinating. I learned all about her way of leading. Not my way, but man, I learned a lot along the way. And you know what? A whole lot more interesting. That's why I love autobiography and biography. Interesting reading. So, just a few thoughts about leadership and what I've learned along the way. So, thank you for your time. Hopefully the rest of the evening as well.
Thank you, Dean. You kind of mentioned something about listening, and a leader, you need to be a good listener, but oftentimes we don't really know how to be a good listener. And so I'm going to vouch for Diversity Dialogues real quick, which is a program that we have in the spring, or in the late winter tribe, which actually teaches you how to actually listen to people. So it's something that you all should check out. It's really cool. Next up, our speaker is a student, and this is someone who has had an amazing impact on my life and who has, helped guide me to be a better person and a better leader. And she's an epic leader, and she empowers people, and she helps them find their purpose and collaborate with them to create new innovative ideas that can help better Johnson and Wales and the whole community. So please help me welcome Megan Coutoure.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to start off today with a little story. And when you're listening, you might think that it doesn't have much to do with leadership, but I think that you're going to find that it actually has everything to do with leadership. Okay, so when I was about 14, I went on a whitewater rafting trip. It was like a week-long thing. It was crazy. Okay, and when I heard about it, this big group of us was going to go. When I heard about it, I was like, no way, not me. I hate water. I'm terrified of it. I don't like adventure really. I'm not gonna do it. And this lady, she was my mentor throughout high school. She said, Megan, you're gonna love it. You're gonna learn something. You're gonna have fun. You have to go. And I was like, okay, fine. So I signed up. I went. So there was about 10 of us on that trip. And first night we just camped, whatever. And the second night we hit the rapids. And when we got to the place where, we rented the raft and got the helmets and all that stuff, they told us that summer had been the most rain Michigan had gotten for years. It was crazy amounts of rain. So the rivers were just swollen, just so high and crazy, and there's stuff everywhere. They almost had to close it down, but the day we came, they said, we'll just leave it open for today. So I was like, because it was going to be really scary anyway, and then the waters are crazy, so I was very nervous. So some people have gone whitewater rafting, and you have a guide with you. You all get in one raft. Well, not my group. It was just the 10 of us broken up into groups of 2 on different rafts, and I was out with a guide. We had both never been rafting before. We just jumped into a boat, we're go. And so we get in the raft, and it was really scary at first. I was scared and freaked out, but as I started warming up to it, paddling, going, it was actually kind of fun. I was like, okay, I can get into this. I'm an adventure girl, whatever. And so we keep going, and we're about halfway into the trip. It was probably 4 hours in, so I'm really getting worked up and stuff. And then in the distance, we see this huge, crazy, rushing part of the river. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so the guy who was kind of leading us, he was the one who had been whitewater rafting before. All of us were new. He says to us, okay, buckle up, get your helmets on, fasten your, I don't know, we didn't have seatbelts, but get your little raft, let's go, let's do this. He was good luck, and I was okay. So we start going, and me and the boy who I was with, we went last, and so we see everyone go, they're successful, it's great, it's crazy, whatever, they're sloshing on the waves. And so we go, and we're about halfway through the rapids, and it was terrifying. Oh my gosh, we were getting just crazily, the rapids were so crazy. I've never seen them like that. Anyway, and so it was crazy and scary, but we were halfway through it. I was like, I can do this, I'm gonna get through this. And so we were halfway through it, and then our raft hit a rock. And all this happened so fast, I don't remember how or why or when it happened, but so we hit a rock, and at that same moment, I got thrown out of my raft into the raging, rapid craziness. And I was so freaked out. And I had been told what to do if I got flung out of the rapid. Close your eyes and mouth, put your feet in front of you so you can hit the rocks, with your feet instead of your head, and, just be calm. But, of course, even though I, had taught it to myself over and over on our trip, when I hit that water, I did the exact opposite. I was flailing, I was, screaming, and, so scared, and so water was rushing to my mouth, and I could not surface. I was under the rapids, hitting rocks, getting so bruised and cut up, and I was like, okay, I'm probably gonna die here, this is cool. And so for like 1 second, I surfaced, and I don't know how it happened, I just did, I was kicking, I guess. And at that same moment, there was a rock that was like right there, it was like perfect, so I grabbed onto it, and I was good, I was, saved or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, I'm on this rock, I can do it now. So I like hiked myself up on the rock, and the water was still rushing past me and like wanting to like pull me in, but I was on this rock, and so I couldn't. And it was really scary, but I made it, and I was on that raft. And I was thinking, how am I going to get back to my raft? Where is my raft? What's happening? So when I looked up, and that lady who was my mentor and had inspired me to go on the trip, she had somehow landed her raft and walked back upstream, upshore, and was waiting for me on shore and saying, let's go, Megan, come on, you can just come to me, and I'll get you back, and you're okay, and just like cheering me on. And I think I probably would have stayed on that rock for like the rest of the week or something if she wouldn't have been there, but she was, and she had come back somehow, even though the rapids were crazy, and had stood by me while she knew I was struggling. And so I made it back to her, was freaking out, like shell-shocked, and however she did it, this lady, Katie, helped me get back into my raft, and we finished the trip. And I remember looking back, as I got into the calmer waters, and looking back at that crazy set of rapids and thinking, whoa, like, that was crazy, that was intense. But it was kind of like the most empowering feeling I've ever felt, maybe, and I was like, yeah, I just did that, okay, cool. And so we finished the trip, and it wasn't until like later that night, and then actually probably later, like years later, like now-ish, that I really started to connect it to life and what it takes, to have leadership and all this stuff. So I'm going to say the 3 things, okay, because leadership, I feel like I'm like a rookie, like I know nothing about it, but I have like a mantra that I say to myself every day, so I'm just going to share it with you. So I get my daily mantra, and you can hear it. So anyway, leadership, I define it, or not define it. I have like 3 things that I say to myself. So number 1, show up. Number 2, be epic. And number 3, chew fast. Okay, so I'm going to explain those a little bit. So number 1, show up. So if we're going to go back to the whitewater rafting trip, I like to use that as an example. I think examples kind of make things come to life and make you remember it better. So if we're going back to the trip, so that lady, Katie, who inspired me to go, she was the perfect example of a leader, because a leader isn't someone who points somewhere and says go. A leader is someone who points to something and says let's go. And she was totally that person. She inspired me to go. She came with me. And then when I went through trials and scariness and got sucked into the waves, she came back, cheered me on, and helped me get back onto my path and finish the race, finish the journey. And I think I encourage you to think of it that way when you're trying to lead someone, instead of saying, like, oh, you should go do this, that'd be really awesome and make you a better person. Be like, we're going to go do this, and I'm going to cheer you on the whole way so you can do it. So instead of telling someone to do something, go with it and see what happens. Second thing, be epic. So Nick kind of said it earlier, but it's kind of like I'm really obsessed with it, I don't know. But it's SGA's like mantra, slogan for the year. So it stands for empowerment, purpose, innovation, collaboration. So empowerment. If we go back to the trip, to the whitewater rafting excursion, I was empowered by Katie to go on this trip. So I wouldn't have done that journey, that thing that made me a better person without her, right? But I think empowerment, even though it is about people, you empowering other people to be better, to inspire them more, it's also about empowering yourself and believing in yourself. Because the thing is, people probably aren't going to be like, go, 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 every step of the way. You kind of have to be your own cheerleader sometimes. So wake up, tell yourself you are awesome, and then go get it. Like, that's it, And, okay, so then P, purpose. I like to compare it, if we're trying to think of analogies or whatever, to that rock in the middle of the rapids. So I think purpose is very important for being a leader and being a person that has drive and motivation, because without that purpose, that thing that holds you together, that thing that makes you know that even though things are pushing against you and you're getting bruised and cut and all this stuff, that you have that purpose, and you have that place where you're, you know that you're doing it for this reason and have goals and all that stuff, then you won't get swept away. And it's so cool. So I like to say purpose is very important for being a leader, and you don't get distracted. And then innovation. So the thing that distinguishes good leaders from great leaders is innovation, because it's not about thinking outside the box, it's about getting rid of the box and thinking of ideas that no one has before and things that you never allowed yourself to think about before. Just like go to that place that you thought wasn't possible and see what happens, because I think amazing things will. And then collaboration. I think we should collaborate with anyone and everyone we meet. Because what have you lost from having a positive relationship with someone? If we inspire, encourage, empower people, they're probably going to do the same to you. And if they don't, that's okay, because you're still better off as a person by doing that for other people. But it's not just about the selfish gain of having, connections, because it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's true. But it's also collaborating with people, learning from people, gives you a new set of eyes for things, and it gives you more reasons to connect with people because you experience more things. You're collaborating with different types of people that you never thought you would before, and by doing that, you're giving yourself a new perspective and a new focus on the world. So I think that's why collaboration is important. So then, the last thing, number 3, is chew fast. So you're probably thinking, what is that? It kind of is, but I want to challenge you all to get a little overwhelmed. So I think what we're told a lot to take it easy, don't take on too much, oh, it's okay, like go take a nap. I think that's all true, but it's also about becoming overwhelmed so that you can see how much you're capable of. I heard this quote, I'm not sure who said it, but it says, the secret of my success is biting off more than I can chew, and then starting to chew as fast as I can. And I just am so empowered by that, because it makes me think of all the things that I never would try just because I think I'm not adequate, or I can't do it, or I don't have enough experience. And then if I just fling myself at it and say, let's do it, let's do it, and it might be scary, it might be overwhelming. Most times, at least for me, I realize that maybe if I just chew fast enough, run fast enough, go fast enough, I can do it, and it's so empowering, it's so exciting. So I'm not saying take on everything, don't do stuff that doesn't make sense, because we're going back to the purpose, that sturdy rock that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think that totally connects with overwhelming yourself, because if you're overwhelming yourself with things that align and make sense and have purpose in your life and for your future, it won't be overwhelming, because you're just inspiring and empowering yourself every second. And it's just, I think that's something you don't have to do, because it might overwhelm you. But at the same time, once in a while, challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to take on a little bit more than you think you can handle, and try it out. So that's about it today. And I hope that, if maybe didn't there was a lot and stuff, but I just wanted to share my thoughts with you and what I say to myself every day to make sure that I'm trying my hardest and doing my best. So I hope you all have a great day, and thanks for listening. And you're all wonderful and inspire me every day. So.
Sorry.
Thank you, Meg. Wonderful as always. Last up, we have Professor Meredith, who will JWU, the CEO of Dial International. Professor?
Thank you. Well, I'm a little shy, retiring kind of person, so maybe you'll have to listen closely. I came here to talk about football. So Broncos! I did bring my commemorative Ohio State football from 2002, when they won the national championship. I think Alabama and Oregon looked tough, but I believe in the Buckeyes. And I also brought this, that if in the back you go to sleep on me, right? Because it's important that I keep you awake, right? And it's important that you kind of participate with me. It's amazing. As I talk to students, if I can get them to talk to me, we learn a lot better. And I notice that no one raises their hand like this anymore, right? It kind of goes up like this, and if I don't hold on, they scratch, okay? So it's important that you talk to me. Let me see, I need to know who's in the house. I see a couple of familiar faces, right? So they've heard some of my old jokes before, and my granddad would say, if you don't know what to talk about 10 minutes. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'm very specific. And I wrote this talk just for you. I've never done this before, so we'll see how this works. Why did I ask Nick to tell you I was CEO of Dial International? I mean, to impress you and all that kind of stuff. Why did I yes, sir? I couldn't have said it better. I'm trying to build a little credibility. You don't know me from a post, right? I'm a guy, and so I want you to know that where Dr. Ederer has a wonderful educational background, I didn't read my stuff in the books. You wonder why I look this old and I have gray hair? I've been lied to in about 40 different languages. Okay? So I have suffered, and I have children. So I earned my stripes, and I wanted to, rather than trying to talk to you about all that, I wanted you to say that, well, maybe this guy has something that you might be interested in. Dr. Ederer was talking. I was thinking of the first leadership. It is truly a journey, not a destination. Why do you want to be a leader? First, I'm going to listen to a PhD. Tell me why I want to be a leader. How many of you have ever been on a dog sled? Dog sled. No? Right? You know what a dog sled is. Work with me. Right? If you're not the lead dog, the scenery never changes. All right. I probably won't use that in my next speech. I worked for, the CEO that I worked for the Greyhound Armor Dial Corporation. We were the 60th biggest company in America. We owned 20 different companies. We owned Armor Foods, Greyhound Lines. I've been in the cruise ship business. Some of my students say, well, you couldn't hold a steady job. But I learned a lot about leadership because Dr. Ederer is correct. You can't be somebody else. You've got to be authentic. Is that the word we use now? I run the management department in the College of Business. So I want to see, what are the disciplines here? Who's culinary? Yeah, nutrition. Ah, nutrition. Oh, yeah. I kind of do that. What? Baking and pastry. Baking and pastry. I always think about, when I talk to the chefs, I didn't know anything about chefs. If it wasn't for the microwave, I would starve. It was, so I really have come to appreciate the chefs and their discipline and what they do and all of that. So I'm a business guy. That's what I do. That's what I've done. I tell students, when you came here, your parents wanted to know, what do you want to do for the rest of your life, right? Because they're spending all this money. They want you to have a focus and a direction. I have an undergraduate degree in microbiology. I can say erythroblastosis fetalis with the best of them, and I spent my whole career as a financial executive and eventually CEO of Dial International. And what I believe that greatness lives in everybody. I think what you need to figure out is what is that greatness? And greatness comes in all kinds of forms. Let me go back to my boss. Did you guys see Up? Yes. With the dogs? Yes. Squirrel! You're going to find out, right, that I get talking about something really serious and all of a sudden I get squirrel and I'll move on, right? I worked for the most impatient man that ever walked the face of this earth. I need a straight person. How impatient was he? Thank you very much. He was so impatient, if he wanted to have a baby, he got 9 women together, gave him a month. Gotta work with me on this. Good, right. So, I've come here, I was thinking about, you're right. It's like making spaghetti sauce. Everybody's got a formula, right? Big tomatoes, mashed tomatoes. Everybody can tell you about leadership, and Dr. Ederer was right. You've got to discover what is within you. You might talk, I like sports. Everybody still awake back? Okay. You probably, some of you know who Bobby Knight is. Bobby Knight was the college basketball coach, and one time he had won more basketball games than anybody's ever coached college basketball. You now see him in Pizza Hut commercials. Bobby Knight was more excitable than I ever thought about being. He threw chairs, he shouted. I mean, he was noted for his violent, explosive temper. He won more games than anybody that had ever coached college basketball. In my opinion, the greatest coach of college basketball is a guy you probably never heard of. He just died. He was 95 years old. His name was John Wooden. John Wooden was the Wizard of Westwood. Wooden coached UCLA. He didn't have a very good career. He won 10 national titles out of 12 years. He won 7 in a row. And Coach Wooden never raised his voice. He always wore a suit and tie. Coach Wooden stood up and raised his program. Everybody became silent and they listened. Did you think for a moment that Bobby Knight could have ever emulated John Wooden? Do you think John Wooden could have ever been Bobby Knight? So you've got to find whatever that is that resonates within you. You know, I thought I was going to be a scientist, right? I wore a lab jacket. Chicks thought I was a doctor. You know how that works. And I realized that students, oh, I talked to culinary. How many hospitality students do I have? One? One, or you just got to raise your hand. Oh, there's 2. Okay, business students? Woo! All right. So we're going to talk about baking and pastry in a little bit or something. So I believe that leadership, you know, is something you've got to figure out. And I discovered that everybody hates numbers. They hate numbers, right? And we get students, as Dean Ederer said, that leave here, and they hated accounting and all of that kind of stuff. And then they get out and they go, you know, Dean, they didn't teach me enough accounting when I was there. And he comes back and tells us, the faculty, you guys need to work on accounting a little bit, right? I tell them I'm probably not going to ever be chair of the College of Business. That if I'm ever chair of the College of Business, you will not graduate from this university until you can do a break-even analysis. Ooh, right? That's kind of boring, right? If you want to have your own restaurant or something. You know, if you need 6,000 people to go by your restaurant every day and you only have 3,000 going by, do you have a problem? Yeah, I'll bet. That's why you need to know, what does it take to be successful and accomplish our goals? And you've got to figure some of that out. And I know that I was good at math. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about when I quit rambling a little bit and doing squirrel. Is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, because when you speak, they told me a long time ago, you need to tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. In consumer products, we believe that you ever wonder why you see the same commercial 3 or 4 times? Right? It's so that you'll remember, because the first time you probably don't remember. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about, is the details. The truth is in the details, and some of those numbers that you hate, right? It's my understanding that the least creative position in culinary is baking and pastry. Why is that? Why is that? Because there's only one way to make a creme brulee. There is the right way to do it, and that's what I believe your chefs are teaching you. But in the other sides of, you can be creative and put plum sauce on and do all that stuff. But baking and pastry, as I understand, is very specific. See, I think that's what the numbers give you, is some of the details so that you can make decisions on. You guys know who George Carlin was?
Yes.
I love George Carlin, the hippy-dippy weatherman. He'd give you the sports. Here are the scores: 4, 17, 9, and 8. He gave you information. He gave you data. He didn't give you any information. So I'm going to share something from my life with you. And I've made enough mistakes. I could come back and give one of these talks. You couldn't drink enough Diet Dr. Pepper for me to talk about the things that I've done and I've learned by all my mistakes, hopefully. Right? So I'm going to give you 2 pieces of maybe irrelevant stuff, and then I'm going to see if I can tie it together, and because we're going to talk about details. Anybody know who Vince Lombardi was?
Yes.
Right? You don't hear Vince talk a lot because Vince swore a lot. He couldn't say 4 words without swearing. So you don't hear a lot of eloquent speeches from Vince Lombardi. He was relatively successful. He won the first 2 Super Bowls. Right? The Lombardi Trophy is named after Vince Lombardi. He's a really, really interesting guy, but pretty hard-nosed. Maybe as impatient as my old boss. Lombardi ran a play at the Green Bay Packers called the famous Packers Sweep. Now, if you ever played football when you're 6 years old, that's really called student body right, student body left. That means as soon as they snap the ball, every little runner runs to the right or the left and they block for the guy with the ball. Okay? He ran that, it was called the Packers Sweep. And nobody ever learned to defeat the Packers Sweep. And you say probably why, and I'm going to tell you in just a second. So Lombardi was kind of loved and hated. And so you know who John Madden is?
Yes.
Lombardi was talking one day at a football conference on the Packers Sweep. The Packers were so good, Bart Starr, the quarterback, they claimed could walk to the line and yell, "Sweep right!" And they still couldn't stop him. Because they were so precise. And if you understand offensive football, every play in offensive football, if you execute it perfectly, will go for a touchdown. Every play. Because you know where you're going, the defense has got to guess. All right? So Madden said, you know, I'd really like to learn how the Packers developed this sweep. Lombardi was supposed to speak a half hour. I think I've got 15 minutes. Lombardi was supposed to speak a half hour on one play, the Packers sweep. And after Lombardi had talked for 4 hours, they said, Vince, you just got to sit down. Can you imagine talking about 4 hours on one football play? Do you know what detail level we're talking about? Now, I'm a golfer, and by the way, we're having golf lessons Sunday as a little plug. If you'd like to learn how to play golf, meet us over here in the ACA at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going to divide you up into people that don't know a golf club from a tennis racket, and people that know how to play, and we're going to see if we can get you started in golf. I think it's a fabulous sport, and I'm kind of trying to get up that thing. Back, can you imagine Lombardi talking 4 hours on one stinking play? Maybe that's why they were so good, and my talk is going to be about details. Put that aside. Now I'm going to ask you another question. We're going to go to Walmart. I know some of you don't like Walmart, but that's a whole other discussion. This is a trick question. It's the right answer, but it's a trick question. What does Walmart sell? How do they make their money? What do they sell? What?
Cheap stuff.
Not yet. Not yet. What does Walmart have to sell? What? Huh? No? They have shelf space. What Walmart has is shelf space. And their job is to maximize the profit for the shelf space they have. And they mix the products and all of that, but they don't care as long as they can maximize. It's called DPP, direct product profitability. And so if you want to get your products on the shelf, you probably have to pay what's called a slotting allowance to get your product on the shelves. Because there's thousands of products and only so much shelf space, and Walmart is trying to maximize their shelf space. The only thing that's important in retail is shelf space and what you do with it. You ever wonder why some of the stuff's up here and some down on the bottom? Because this is a really good shelf space right here. For the little old ladies, you don't have to reach for it. Nobody looks down on the bottom. So take my Lombardi detail, take my Walmart shelf space, and kind of keep those as events. So I'm CEO of Dial International. And my job is to go out and develop the business, take it around the world. I've been a lot of fascinating places. I've eaten a lot of strange things. It was a fascinating career. And whether you like it or not, you are involved in international. You know, years ago, it was kind of like maybe Colorado had a business. That's all gone. Right? Between the internet and everything, you don't even know where some products are made and all that kind of stuff. So my job is to grow Dial International. And I'm out selling soap. There's nothing really exciting about soap. Chinese developed it about 4,000 years ago, right? You can kind of make it in your own home if you've got enough pig fat. They like to talk about fat, you know, saponification cut up in the bars. We've been making soap a long time. This isn't rocket science, okay? My soap had a little hexachlorophene in it, kind of, you know, kept you from having AIDS or something because it was. But so I'm out trying to sell. So I'm in Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong. I've learned a ton of stuff not to do. And what I'm telling you is that when I was an executive in the United States, I knew everything there was to know about soap. I knew everything. And I would have you reflect that leaders kind of come in two categories. This is wrong to categorize anybody. But there are charismatic leaders that you like their thoughts and their ideas. And then there are people that just know stuff. And you want to follow them because they know stuff. And what they know is they know the details. I had a wonderful student here. He was an honor student, good looking. All the girls loved him. He's an articulate speaker. He wanted to be in the real estate. Well, he worked for a big property management company. And one day they walked in, and when you graduate, you're going to be proud of your degrees. His boss walked in one day and says, I want you to get a pad of paper. I want you to go down to the tech center. I want you to knock on doors. I want you to find every medical person down there. I want you to find out how long they're there, what they pay for rent, when their lease is up, etc. He said, do you want me to cold call? He said, I'm a college graduate. He said, one day if you're going to be manager, leader, boss, or whatever, and you send somebody out to do what I'm asking you to do, and they ask you, well, how did it work when you did it? What are you going to tell them? If you haven't walked the walk, how are you going to talk the talk? And I thought that was pretty impressive. That, do you know why people are coming here for Johnson & Wales Job Fair? Do you know why they're coming here when they used to go to DU and some of the other places? Because we have a reputation of being able to get our hands dirty. Being able to put our hands in the soil, right? You know how to do the stuff. You just didn't see somebody do it on a video. And what I'm going to share with you is that your level of knowledge. If you're really going to be a great leader, charisma is something you kind of develop. But you can always have more knowledge. You can be a continual learner. You can always improve your skills. You can always get better. And even though I'm old, I'm still looking for better ways. The buzzword today is emotional intelligence. That you need to understand yourself before you can manage somebody else and see what their emotional intelligence is. So I'm not trying to grow business. And I'm telling you, some of what happens in your life is going to be luck. Blind, staggering luck. Right? I believe the largest gold nugget ever found was laying on the ground. It wasn't mine. Somebody just reached over and picked it up. Right? So, it helps to be observant. You know what Yogi Berra say? You can see a lot just by looking around. Tell me you know who Yogi Berra was.
Yeah.
He's still alive. Yogi has some things that I use in my classroom. A lady asked Yogi one day, she said, Yogi, would you like your pizza cut in 6 slices or 10 slices? Oh, he said I couldn't eat 10 slices. So I'm out looking, and sometimes stuff falls in your lap. Now, you've all heard of British Petroleum. Do you know that originally British Petroleum was owned by the British government? And they privatized it, means the government no longer owned it. They sold the stock to people, and it became a publicly traded company. I think that happened in 1976 or something. Today, I think they're the 3rd biggest petroleum company in the world. So what happens when you have a government entity versus a for-profit entity is they do stuff that maybe doesn't make any sense or make any money. British Petroleum owned a soap company. They made laundry soap and hand soap, and it wasn't very big in the scope of British Petroleum, but somebody thought it was a good idea. And it was for sale. I could have bought a subsidiary of British Petroleum for $10 million. Now, I know that's a lot of money, but maybe you just saw, to put this in perspective of what you hear on the news all the time, is that Verizon just bought back. It closed last week. They bought back 48% of their own company. You want to guess what they paid for 48% of their own company? Somebody talk to me. I can be up here a long time if you want to. What? 100 something. 100 million. I got 100 million going once. 3 billion. Now we're getting up to some big dollars. I've got the big spenders back here now. How much? 7 billion? Oh, now I got the big players. Well, I got to get on with my talk, right? Or you'll be here all night. I know there's other things you want to do. Verizon just paid $130 billion for 48% of themselves. They borrowed $46 billion, and the rest of it they had in cash. So I boggles my mind too. I'm like you. I can't. It's beyond. That's a small country, okay? So I'm buying this company. I could have bought this company for $10 million. I was ecstatic. I thought I would be maybe on Harvard Business Review because I was going to take this company and turn it into this. And back to my Walmart. How you go into the rest of the world is you need shelf space. They had shelf space. They had shelf space in Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia. I could have that shelf space for $10 million. And they had relationships with people. They knew people in the country. I'm doing the dance, right? They're going to promote me. I'm going to be really cool. So I go back, I tell my boss, I got all this stuff. I make a presentation to the board of directors. Right? This has everything. They've got, it's all set. We just got to take it over and take it off of British Petroleum's hands. Right? I'm giving this presentation, I'm doing what I can, I'm showing the products, I'm giving a little dance, right? We're talking about $10 million. We used to spill more than that. Okay? One of the directors, this is what I was talking about the details. I gave them product stuff, I gave them marketing, I gave them sales dollars, net income, I talked about potentials, I gave everything. One of the board of directors leans over to my boss and said, "What do you know about the Bumi Putra?" Any of you ever been to Indonesia? Native Indonesians are referred to as the Bumi Putra. You are a native Indonesian. Now I'm going to back up a second. In America, we don't think anything at all about doing business and having partnerships, right? Chicago. Chicago's a very interesting city, right? And I knew it when the first Mayor Daley was there, and then the second one. In Chicago, they have a rule that if you're going to open up some stuff in Chicago, you need a partner, a minority partner, because they want to encourage ownership in Chicago, not somebody in another country. So they want to have the people in Chicago participating and learning about how the business works in Chicago. Some of you will know my partner was Walter Payton. The only idea Walter Payton was the greatest running back ever played for Chicago Bears. They call him Sweetness. He was an incredible human being. Do you know what happens if you have a partner like Walter Payton? People will see you, people you never thought you could get in and talk to, want to shake Walter Payton's hand. So we've used partners around the world forever. It's just good business. The Indonesians want exposure to the Indonesian people about how the business is going to run so they eventually can learn and run their own business. And they had a rule that if you're going to have a business, 10% of the business has got to be owned and represented by native Indonesians. But when I told you about the Bumi Putra, you were kind of little, you didn't know who they were. I didn't explain it as I've explained it to you, which I could have. A little detail that I left out. What do you think happened? This is an incredible deal. What do you think happened to my deal? They turned it down. They turned down my deal. I could have got us into Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia for a lousy $10 million. We never got there. But we turned it down because I forgot one little detail. I should have explained that we were going to have partners. I explained to you, like Walter Payton, that could introduce us to other native Indonesians. I could have done a little sales job, and they would have given me $20 million. So what I came to talk about, and I'll finish it up, is that you're good. You're on the right track. You're willing to put your hands in the soil. Are you willing to go to that next level? Do you think you could talk 4 hours on anything that your knowledge will about? Are you willing to go to that kind of detail? And I think that, maybe you can't be charismatic. Maybe you can't tell funny stories like my sled dog joke. But you can always learn more about the details and take yourself to another level. And I guess that's kind of my wish for you tonight is that I see seniors write me papers and they get this great start. They're working on a strategy. I teach strategic planning, and they're working on a great strategy, and it just kind of stops. I don't get that last piece of detail. I don't get that cherry on top of my pastry. And they have a hard time carrying it to greatness because they just lack that last piece of detail. And so that would be my encouragement to you, is you always can keep developing your skills, make them more succinct, make them more viable, and talk to people. You know, because everybody's going to, if you have children one day, everybody's going to give you advice about children. My child would never do that, right? Don't listen to any of that crap, right? You know, your baby doesn't walk till so much. That baby will walk when that baby wants to walk, right? And your leadership skills are going to be what you make of it. And you have a choice. You know, you can kind of learn a little bit about a lot of things. And you can really develop something. We tell our students, if you find the job you love, you never have to go to work. And I think that's what happened to me. I know, maybe the chicks still think I'm a doctor. But I was pretty good at financial and strategic planning and solving that stuff. I could have had us in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Hong Kong for a lousy $10 million. And I lost it because I forgot to talk about the Looney Coutoure. And it bothers me today. And I remember that now, so when I'm explaining things, I try to give enough detail. Certainly you can get so far down in the detail, you get what we call analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. I almost had it right. But I want you to get a little further down. Why do we do that? The Japanese require, before they do something, they require people to say why 7 times. That gets hard. Why do you do this? I do because of this. Why do you do that? So I guess my thought to you on leadership tonight was, see what kind of detail you can get into to be the best you can. I tell you, close with one story. Jeff Ederer talked to you about hiring the right people. I know the story. I've done some writing on leadership. 2 guys with wonderful educations. I believe one was from MIT and the other was from Wharton, and master's degrees from Wharton. And their first job was they got hired by Procter & Gamble. Now, I understand most students don't know who Procter & Gamble is. Procter & Gamble, they make Tide, Crest toothpaste, big consumer products company. Got hired for Procter & Gamble. They were given the task or the assignment to rewrite. Procter & Gamble owns Betty Crocker that makes cake mixes and stuff. Their first job out of college was to rewrite the recipes for Betty Crocker. What a fun job, huh? Yeah, right? Every day at 4 o'clock, these 2 guys, master's degrees, closed the door to their office and played basketball for an hour. Would you hire those people? Sound like a little bit like slackers to me? I know you've never played basketball. Played for an hour every day. The 2 guys were Jeff Balmar and Jeff, I wrote it down, Emmelt. Balmar is president of Microsoft. Emmelt is president of GE. So my point is, some of you are going to be stars right out of the bat. Some of you are going to screw around with the ball and play basketball. I believe that there's greatness in all of you if you can find it, and I think Jeff Emmelt and Steve Balmar are examples of that. But you've got to figure that out, and I don't know how you do it. That some people do it very young. Tiger Woods broke 55 years old. Colonel Sanders didn't develop Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was 60. So don't give up on yourself. Don't say, well, you know, if I haven't done this by so-and-so, I'm never going to be great. All right, that's my message. Can I answer any questions while I'm here? I probably will see most of you again if you all see in class. Can I answer any questions about, because I know that I probably talk longer than the 10 minutes that I talked to you about. Thoughts? Yes, sir.
How you're going to get down to the details, but you don't bore the person too.
You know,
I did that with nutrition a lot.
That's one of those things. You know, I mean, how far down the details is too much. Yeah. But if you're too glib and at the top, then you miss the things. I believe if you do DNA testing, I think there are like 780 points in DNA testing. It's the last 5 that tell the difference. Did you know that? Yes. The big piece of DNA testing is kind of all the same. It's the last 5 points. And I don't know where that is. I think profits are in the details. You just don't sell it for more than it costs you. You know, but I think you need to know the exact temperature. You just don't throw it in the oven and say, we'll just cook it somewhere between, 600 and 700. If I had the answer for that, I'd write a book. I'd be in Hawaii. You guys would be sitting by my throne looking for the answers. It's a great question. Because you certainly, you've talked to people that want to talk about their vacation or something, and they're giving you the details. I had a red shovel when we went to the beach, and I got a pail, and I took the red shovel 3 times. I stuffed it. You've heard that. You just kind of want to go, I'm about to have an appendectomy or something, right? But the details, the truth and the details will set you free. That once people know that you know what you're talking about, then leadership, I think, will be a lot easier. And they'll want to gain some of your knowledge, and they'll want to be part of your collaboration. That's a great question. I wish I could give you the two-word answer, but I can't. Last chance. I'm going to go home and watch the Cleveland Browns play who's on tonight? Browns and Buffalo Bills. There was an exciting matchup. Browns, Bills. Last chance. Thank you for putting up with me. Good luck. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
As all of our speakers have said tonight, there's always different ways that you can be a leader, but it's always possible, and it's within every single person to be a leader. You just have to find that drive and that want to be a leader. So that's everything that we have tonight. Our next JWUTalks is on November 7th, and it's over health and wellness. Woo! Joey will probably be there with kale or something. So that's it for tonight. As always, I hope that you all gained something from this, or maybe took a different perspective of how you see things. So, Brittany, do you have anything else? All right. Thank you, y'all. Have a wonderful
Do it.